I really want to just make sure I tick off the box of cause factors. So you mentioned stress. You mentioned sleep. I currently don't have cancer, as far as I'm aware, God forbid. But I want to do everything I can to prevent the probability.
Yeah.
And from what I've understood, that means protecting my mitochondrial function.
Yes.
By living a lifestyle where I'm not creating this sort of like crazy oxidative stress on the mitochondria.
Right.
So give me a prescription of how I should live my life to keep my mitochondria healthy.
Well, that's why we developed the glucose ketone index calculator, the first biomarker tool that can allow people to know the level of health of their mitochondria. Because when you shift from carbohydrate fuel to lipid fuel.
What's lipid fuel?
Fat.
So ketones.
Ketones are a water-soluble breakdown product of fatty acids. Okay. So we store adipose tissue. We store fat.
Which is the belly fat.
All over. We have fat on
the outside.
Yeah. So on the outside. That was there because as a species, we had to survive in the most harsh environments, and we were food was not always there. So we had to survive all kinds of famine, all kinds of absence of food. Our bodies are it's a machine that was honed over millions of years to be super efficient. So glucose is gold, sugar. Okay. You either burn it or you can store it as fat. Okay. That's the key. But when you're not bringing in sugar, that stored fat now moves into the bloodstream, goes to the liver. It's like taking a branch and putting it in a chopper, and out come these little soluble ketone bodies. They're breakdown products of long-chain fatty acids. They can replace sugar for the brain, for the muscles, for most other cells in the body, except erythrocytes. But they can replace the energy of glucose. Okay, so and that's how we evolved. But we're now in an environment where we have massive amounts of highly processed carbohydrates. And we don't want to pee them out unless you have diabetes or something. So we store them as fat. So we have an obesity epidemic as the result of our evolutionary ability to store energy, which kept us alive as a species. Because if we weren't able to store the fat in 500,000, we would have all been extinct. You and I, this conversation would never exist. We would never have existed as a species, except for our ability to store energy. And we burn energy efficiently in these organelles. So this is all a very highly efficient machine. So when we lose that ability, when we have so much energy in the environment, stress and no exercise, all this, we store more and more fat. We produce an environment that's very damaging to this organelle.
Wait, say that again. So how does stress impact that?
Stress elevates corticosteroids. When you're under stress, you get into a fight, into an argument, or you're stressed out by business deal going bad or whatever. Corticosteroids elevate blood sugar, contributing to systemic inflammation. It's okay for a short period of time to be pissed off at something, but it's the chronic stress, the chronic, like looking at the cell phone, doom scrolling, all this kind of crazy stuff while eating a big Twinkie, doom scrolling, eating Twinkies, not moving. All of this creates stress on this organelle in some population of cells.
It makes it work harder.
It's damaging because you produce reactive species that damage the efficiency of this organelle to produce energy effectively. And that either will kill the cell gradually if it can't use compensatory fermentation, or predispose you to cancer. So either way, it's unhealthy. So we have chronic disease. Cancer is the number one big dog in the chronic disease world. I mean, it's the one that people fear the most. Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia. All of these are part of damage to this organelle in one way or another. Like I said, for Parkinson's disease, when that organelle gets damaged, the cells of the substantia nigra die. They are incapable of compensating with fermentation, so they up and die. Cancer is very rare in neurons of the brain. Neurons, the glial cells of the brain form these brain tumors mostly, but neurons can't compensate with fermentation, so they die. So you either get compensatory ancient fermentation leading to dysregulated cell growth, which we call cancer, or we get cell death leading to chronic diseases.
What about sleep then? What's going on with sleep that's causing?
Sleep is a way we can restore the energy efficiency of the mitochondria.
If we're well slept.
If we have good sleep, yeah. Everybody feels good when you have a good night's sleep. Your body feels rejuvenated because you're not stressing out. You're reducing the ability of this organelle to manage the metabolic environment. If you're up all night and you're like stressed out, and you're never given this organelle in a particular cell in a particular part of the organ of the body. You get neuropsychiatric problems. You can get digestive problems. You can get cancer. You can get type 2 diabetes. You have a whole, and we put it in the paper there, all the different stress, all the different things that can chronically or acutely damage oxidative phosphorylation. regulation.
So sleep basically gives the mitochondria a little bit of a break.
Yes, it gives your whole body a break. Let's be honest. But you pile those things on together. Lack of exercise. Our ancestors, what do you think? Our ancestors, you know how hard it is to run down and kill a big buffalo or a woolly mammoth? I mean, you're exhausted after doing something. As a matter of fact, you chase these animals, you separate, and this is another thing that was really interesting, came out of Israel, I think it was last year. They looked at the cavemen, what they were eating. They were eating the strongest members of the herd, leading to the indirect extinction of these animals. They found out that if you can eat the strongest member of the herd, you'll get the vitality of that or buffalo or elephant or whatever the hell they were eating, because they knew the marrow and the physiology of that organism at that point in its life could provide you with the strength that had. Now, when you eat the strongest members of the herd because you want to be tough, you're putting the old and the young vulnerable to predators, leading to the extinction. And this is what a big paper came out of Israel. They looked at these cavemen, what they were eating like 500,000 years ago, or whatever they're doing. So humans indirectly caused extinction of other species, in part because they were eating the toughest guys in the herd. So because they felt that if I eat those guys, I'm going to be strong too. And in a way, they're right. But all of it has to do with the energy efficiency of your muscles, your brain, your ability to be resilient, endurance. I'm telling you, these guys were chiseled. They weren't dying from type 2 diabetes, cancer, right? Dementia. They were dying from infections and injuries and child mortality. Were mostly killing our Paleolithic ancestors. But when you bring your body back into a low glucose ketone, you're actually going back like you were. And this is why we developed the glucose ketone index.
What is in that envelope in front of you?
Well, this is, it's a paper that's under embargo because they think it's going to be, the world thinks it's going to be very important. And it is. So, and what it is, this is a way to keep that organelle healthy. So this is a way to manage energy efficiency in the body.
And this hasn't been released yet?
It hasn't been released. Okay, it's coming out. It's going to be a lead article in the Frontiers in Science. And not only that, the paper was written for the scientists, and then the journal decided to make a second copy for, they call young minds. So letting kids that are like 8 to 12 or 14 years old synthesize it down. And one of my colleagues said that's probably what most people will be reading because they don't want to know about the bioenergetics that actually goes on inside this organelle to explain why this chart means something.
And you've been working on this for some time?
Well, I built the GKI. So let me tell you the story. There was a woman, an American woman, a lawyer, Trudy DuPont, who developed a kind of a brainstem tumor. And after I wrote my book, that's my only book. Anyway, Trudy wanted to use this metabolic therapy. She stayed alive much longer, over 10 years with this. She eventually passed away, unfortunately. But so I was measuring, because we knew that the tumor cells needed sugar to grow. Otto Warburg showed that, and many other people showed that. And they can't burn ketones because the fatty acid, you need a very efficient mitochondria to burn ketones for energy. Our normal cells can burn ketones for energy, and that gives us tremendous, we can actually breathe lower oxygen, more energy if you can burn ketones efficiently in this organelle. But if the organelle is damaged, they can't use the ketones. They can't burn fatty acids or ketones, which stores lipid drops. It's one of these big papers here. Stephen, you can't believe how people misinterpret information. They see droplets of fatty acids in the cytoplasm and say, you see, the cancer cell needs all that fatty acid. No, they can't. It's there to protect them. If they try to burn it, they blow this up and die. So there is a storage of fat. They can't burn fatty acids or ketone bodies. So I knew cancer needed glucose, and I knew cancer couldn't burn fatty acids or ketones because this organelle is broken. So I'm measuring glucose and ketones independently in Trudy. She's doing the finger prick thing, sending me the information back and saying, oh, here's my glucose, here's my ketones.
Okay, so I have a ketone glucose reader in front of me.
Right.
If I put my blood on this strip, it tells me my glucose levels. If I put my blood on this strip, it tells me my ketone levels.
Right. But if you look at them independently, glucose is very volatile, very variable. And this is why I developed the glucose ketone ratio. Because Trudy had a parking spot that was for handicapped. Because she had a cane, her brainstem glioma was preventing her from walking as effectively as normal people. So somebody took her parking spot. She was bullshit. So she ran upstairs and took her blood sugar, and it was 186 milligram per deciliter. It was very, very high. So, and I know she was on a ketonic diet. And she emails me and says, I'm going to die. My cancer is going to grow fast. I say, what's going on? She said, my blood sugar is like 186. And, it's supposed to be, you told me it was supposed to be 60 or, 50, 65 or in that zone. She says, so I said, what's your ketone level? Oh, it's still, like you just had 0.4 millimolar, or I think it was 0.9 millimolar. I said, well, that didn't change, right? No, just the sugar changed. So I said to the students that were working with Josh Weidenbauer, I said, Josh, this trying to measure these two independently is a bullshit. This is hard to figure out. So what we decided to do in millimolar, because glucose comes out in milligram per deciliter, whereas ketones come out in millimolar. So we had to convert glucose to millimolar and divide it by the ketone in millimolar. And then you get a number that's not all over the world. It's very stable. So we were able to, because of Trudy, that one cancer patient, we developed the ratio of this. And then later on, we realized that this ratio is a statement of how healthy your mitochondria actually are. So when you have these low ratio, you're a Paleolithic man. You're back in the zone where we didn't have chronic diseases because we didn't have damage to the organelle that would cause those diseases. So Paleolithic man, think, where are they getting their pastries? Where are they getting their cakes and sweets and all this other? They didn't have it. They weren't there because of choice. They were there because of circumstance. So and we learned Paleolithic man was always in some sort of a state of some ketosis because they wouldn't have food for periods. They were very active in their exercise. They didn't have chronic diseases, but they had other kinds of diseases. So then my student Derek Lee, myself, and Christos Chernopoulos, we started to make a ratio chart. Now, these are the numbers that you get when you divide your sugar by your ketones.
Okay, so my sugar by my ketones. So if I did my glucose measure now on this little reader
okay,
here.
let's see what your GKI is.
Oh, you want me to do it? Okay.
Okay, what you had a glucose, you had a ketone with 0.4 millimolar.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your sugar? So we can do the division right now and tell you what you have.
You can get these little ketone.
Oh yeah, it's a Keto Mojo. And you can also get them now for wow, these guys skilled at doing this.
I travel with one of these, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I have one all the time.
Wow.
90.
90. Okay, so you have to divide. You're not getting doesn't this give you the push button and give you the GKI right away? Because the new ones have it. So you have to divide 90 by 18 and you get a number.
5.
5. So divide 5 by 0.4.
12.5.
Okay, so here you are. 12.5. You're down here in the prevention zone.
Nice.
Okay. So this is where Paleolithic man mostly lived. Paleolithic man lived in the yellow-green zones because they didn't have access to all of the things that would drive up your blood sugar and keep your when your blood sugar goes through the roof, your ketones are really low because insulin is now driving it up. So that's good. 12, huh? So I did the carnivore diet for a week, eating big ribeyes. You like ribeye steak?
Yes, of course.
Okay, ribeyes, bacon and eggs, lamb. So I did it for a week, and I was able to get down to 10. Okay. And I could get lower, but I was loving the ribeye so much I ate a little too much of it, right? You have to have some level of discipline.
Yeah.
But people, this is what we call the zone of prevention. It's very hard to get cancer or chronic diseases when you're in these zones because you're keeping this organelle quite healthy.
When you live in these zones consistently?
You don't have to live consistently because humans, we evolved as a scavenger species.
Yeah.
We would engorge ourselves because we knew it wasn't happening every day. Modern man is living in the feast every single day.
Yeah.
And that's why we have all the chronic diseases. This is the red zone. Is the zone of risk for chronic diseases and cancer. And when you look at the obesity epidemic, you look at all these things, these guys and it's like we can visit the red zone. We don't want to live in the red zone.
So if I was to visit the red zone, it would look like me eating high carbohydrate diets, lots of sugar.
Yeah. No exercise. Yeah. And basically modern man.
And also eating 5 meals a day, like snacking all the time.
Yeah. Oh, then you'd be, we have, this document cases, we have them up to 500. You can get,
You're joking.
Oh yeah, GKIs of 500. You have people with blood sugars about 400 or 500 milligram per deciliter. I mean, you could do and zero ketones. I mean, you do the math. It's unbelievable.
You're basically saying I want to keep my blood glucose levels,
and you want to have some level of ketones
and my ketone levels somewhat as high as I can.
Well, you don't want to go because people then hear the physicians listening. They go, "Oh, he's going to go into ketoacidosis." Hey, you people, give me a break. Ketoacidosis is like when you have ketone levels of 15 to 20 millimolar. Are you kidding me? What is yours? 0.4? That's called nutritional ketosis. That's how we evolved. When you have type 1 diabetes, where you can't control sugar or insulin, you have no insulin responsive. You're going to get high levels of sugar and ketones. This is a pathological condition. Most of type 2 diabetes, these are all pathologies based on damaging oxidative phosphorylation. So what this chart does is, for the first time, and we put it together because we did in the paper discusses the bioenergetics. What we're finding in cancer is that if you can get into the green zones where your blood sugar is low and your ketones are elevated, you hammer the hell out of these tumor cells because you're taking away one of their two primary fuels driving dysregulated cell growth. Okay, and as the ketones go up, the rest of your cells in the body are getting super healthy. The tumor cells can't tap into the value of a ketone because the organelle needed in the tumor cell to do that is corrupted structurally and functionally. Am I clear about that?
Yes.
Okay. So ketones will make you healthy, the normal cells of your body, but cannot be used to help the cancer cell because you need a good structural functional organelle to burn them. So they become marginalized. And if the ketones go up, they're actually toxic to that cell to some extent. So, but they're still alive. The cancer cells are now incapacitated. We showed you get rid of the abnormal inflammation. You get rid of the angiogenesis, the abnormal blood vessels. You're taking an angry tumor and making it much less angry, much less inflamed, more indolent kind of a tumor, but it's still there. It's not, because the other fuel that's keeping this cancer cell going is the glutamine. Okay? So now, when you have the patient in this green zone, this is for management now, Stephen. Prevention is never having to deal with what I'm talking about. If you're living in the yellow zone, the probability of getting cancer or chronic diseases is already reduced. Okay? But now you have some poor guy out there, he's living in the red zone his whole life. He wants to manage the cancer that he has. He has to get down in the green zone and try to stay there as long as he can. But the cancer will still grow because it has access to glutamine. Okay, and glutamine is always, here's the bloodstream. Look at, you have this much blood. Cancer needs that, so you always have a surfeit of glutamine. So you have to come in now with drugs. And the drugs, like repurposed drugs, to target the glutaminolysis. With this one here, this BMC big paper here. Mm-hmm. Okay, this paper and the new one we have with the ketogenic for the childhood high-grade glioma for kids. So once you get down here, you come in with drugs that target glutamine. I've looked at one, and that's embendazole. Okay, how did I come to that realization? People knew that embendazole had some therapeutic benefit about cancer, but they don't believe it until you show the mechanism. That paper shows the mechanism. It targets glucose and glutamine. Now this one targets glucose and glutamine, the two fuels driving the dysregulated growth of the tumor. Okay, so here's the mitochondria. So it's getting the glucose in the cytoplasm from the sugar and it's fermenting that. And then also the amino acid glutamine comes in. You have to block the glycolysis and the glucose, these two pathways. You have to restrict the availability of glucose and glutamine together at the same time. Yeah. I speak only about things that I have tested in my lab and published papers on, like this. So you have to the cancer field doesn't understand that the cancer can't grow without glucose and glutamine and can't switch to fatty acids or ketone bodies.
That's still not going to kill the cancer, though, is it? It's just going to...
Yeah, we don't ever use the term cure because some of these tumors... Now, let me tell you, we have people like Pablo Kelly from Devon, England. He had the glioblastoma. He didn't take any radiation or chemo. He just did metabolic therapy. He lived for 10 years. Mm. He was diagnosed with an inoperable glioblastoma. They wanted to irradiate and poison him with the drugs. He said no. He was one of these naturalistic kind of guys. And he lived for 10 years. and the tumor became operable. He had 4 debulking surgeries on an originally described inoperable cancer, cut out 4 times, because once we put the metabolic therapy, the demarcation of the tumor, whoa, the neurosurgeon says, I think I can get this out. But he never got rid. He lived with it for 10 years, had a couple of kids. He died from a cerebral hemorrhage on the last debulking surgery. He never died from the tumor.
But you're saying that the two work together in tandem.
Yes.
You're saying that the chemotherapy works in...
Now, that's another thing. So what we do, now this is very interesting. So if you put the patient in nutritional ketosis, the ketogenic state of nutritional ketosis facilitates the delivery of drugs to the tumor cell. It actually you can use lower doses of drugs and you get bigger effect. The therapeutic benefit increases with lower dosing.
So you want to be in ketosis when you do these chemotherapy, radiation therapy?
Yeah, and then you use much lower doses. This is what we're doing in Istanbul clinic. We're taking pancreatic cancers. These guys live in 4 and 5 years. What are we doing? And advanced breast cancer and all these terminal cancers. We put them into some level of ketosis, and then you come in with the standard drugs, cisplatin, carboplatin, whatever you want to do, but you cut the dosages down big time. And then they have tremendous, and you put it, this is what the title of the paper is: Ketogenic Diet as a Metabolic Vehicle for Enhancing Therapeutic Efficacy.
The current body of research suggests that being in a state of ketosis can act as a helper therapy, enhancing the cancer-killing effects of chemotherapy while simultaneously protecting healthy cells.
Yeah, right.
Progressive oncologists are currently using ketogenic diets alongside standard chemo to maximize its efficacy.
That's right. That's what we're doing in Istanbul, and also in Greece. We're doing those same things. So you can use this.
When you enter a fasted or ketogenic state, your healthy cells essentially go into bunker mode. They slow their division, conserve energy, and build up their defenses. Cancer cells, however, do not have this evolutionary off switch. They continue trying to rapidly divide. When the toxic chemotherapy hits, your shielded healthy cells survive it much better, while the exposed, rapidly dividing cancer cells take the full hit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. In other words, you make with the tools you have work better. The problem in the field of cancer today is they're not using the tools in the correct way. Now, let me give you another example. If you take immunotherapies, you hear about these things, chimeric antigen T receptor, PD1, PD-L1 inhibitors. They're called precision medicines, right? So look, they're designed to attack a molecule on the surface or stop that cell from being resistant. Mm-hmm. If you were trying to attack, and what they do oftentimes, they come at, after you've failed chemo and radiation, they then come at you with an immunotherapy. The metabolic pressure shrinks down your tumor, makes it very indolent, non-aggressive, and the rest of your body is healthy. You're not going bald, you're not bleeding gums, your microbiome isn't blown to hell. So, and then you can come in with low-dose chemo, immunotherapy, because whatever left in that remaining residual mass, they may all have something in common for having survived all this. Right? So now you can come in with a precision medicine and possibly resolution.
I thought this was fascinating. It says chemotherapy creates massive oxidative stress, i.e. damage inside the tumor. To repair the damage and survive, the cancer cell requires massive amounts of glucose. So if the patient is in ketosis, the tumor's glucose supply is essentially cut off. The cancer cell can't repair the DNA damage caused by your chemo, leading to faster tumor death. Yeah, interesting.
Well, don't forget also, listen to this. And there's another thing. People go in. What protects the tumor cell from chemo and radiation is the waste products of fermentation. The lactic acid and the succinic acid that are dumped out of this raging beast prevent these other therapies from working. So if you want your therapy to work, you got to target those two fuels together at the same time. And when you do that, now this cell, the shield is off. These things are super vulnerable to even low doses of chemo and radiation. And the immunotherapies, look at, if you have an immunotherapy, you try to attack the beast when it's at its strongest, you're not going to win. And this is what happens. You get only partial response. In the field of cancer today, they think living an extra 6 months is a major breakthrough. We're talking about living an extra 5 and 6 years. This is what's really important.
I was redoing some research to figure out if oncologists, so cancer doctors, are currently recommending the ketogenic diet. And it says the vast majority of mainstream oncologists do not recommend the ketogenic diet to their newly diagnosed patients. In fact, if a patient brings it up, many doctors will actively advise against it. And the reasons for that, number one, is the fear of cachexia.
Cachexia. Yeah.
Cachexia. Cancer cachexia is a severe wasting syndrome where patients rapidly lose muscle and fat. It is a massive problem and a leading cause of mortality in cancer patients. Because the ketogenic diet suppresses appetite and often leads to weight loss, oncologists are terrified that a strict keto diet will accelerate cachexia and weaken the patient.
Well, that's because they have not heard what I just said with respect to the biology and biochemistry. Okay. Cachexia, there's two ways you can lose in cancer patients. Cachexia is the ability of the tumor cell to mobilize energy out of the muscles. It's taking the glutamine out of your muscles and feeding. This is one of the two fuels that's driving the beast, is glutamine. Where are they getting the glutamine from? They're getting the glutamine not only from the bloodstream, but they dissolve your muscles as part of that process. So when you put a patient in nutritional ketosis, the weight loss is therapeutic weight loss. Cachexia is pathological weight loss. Now, the other way you can lose weight is you take a high dose of chemotherapy.
I travel all the time. I made a rule in my life that I'll only travel with a cabin bag. The problem with this is there's not much space, and here's the solution. It is called an extra 1% travel pack, and I teamed up with Extra to make this. Typically, I can only bring some of my black shirts, and it's a trade-off of which black shirt shall I bring. How many of these do you think I can get in here? So let's try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Let's try 15. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so that's 24 black t-shirts. Here's where the magic comes in. Zip it up, make sure it's nice and sealed, and then use this little contraption. Stick it on there. I can now take more than 20 black shirts with me, which will last me 3 weeks. So if you travel frequently and you want to get one of these so you can save more space and be away for longer, go to extra.com and use code DOAC for 10% off our collection. And I think some of the background context here is that mainstream oncology operates on the sort of somatic mutation therapy, which is the belief that cancer is fundamentally a genetic disease driven by DNA mutations. And because their training focuses on genetics, their treatments are designed to target DNA and cell division, like chemoradiation targeted genetic therapies, rather than manipulating cellular metabolism. And lastly, as mentioned, I think we talked about this earlier, mainstream medicine requires massive multi-center double-blind phase 3 clinical trials before a protocol becomes the standard of care. So dietary interventions rarely get the level of funding. So oncologists lack the institutional green light to prescribe them to patients. And they tend to say to them, eat what you can.
I don't blame them. They're good. Many of them are good people. The problem is the system doesn't train them to understand the biology and biochemistry of the disease they're treating. Some of them become very resistant to this. They get angry because why wasn't I told this? Well, first of all, they're not reading these papers. You ask them about it. I never read it. Well, how are you going to know anything if you don't read the literature? Listen to this. The National Cancer Institute, the NCI, on their website says cancer is a genetic disease caused by what you just said. Okay. I said, why don't they put the articles in there showing all the tumors? They can't find any mutations. The somatic mutation theory says that cancer is caused by random genetic mutations. So now, new sequencing of normal people like you and me are finding mutations in all these driver genes in cells in our body that aren't in dysregulated cell growth. So we're calling them wild-type cancers. What do you mean a wild-type cancer?
Oh, you lost me.
Okay, the nucleus of a tumor cell, a raging tumor cell, what's causing that cell to grow? Is it the mitochondria in the cytoplasm, or is it the mutations in the nucleus? Okay, so according to the somatic mutation theory, it's the mutations in the nucleus that are causing the dysregulated cell growth. You take that nucleus and put it into an enucleated normal cell.
Yeah, and there's no cancer.
No cancer. There's no dysregulation.
There must be something else.
Then you take the nucleus of the normal cell and put it into the cytoplasm of a tumor cell, and you get dysregulated cell growth.
So it must be something other than the nucleus.
Yes, the mitochondria.
Interestingly, it says...
So mitochondria are controlling our destiny. And the field of cancer has yet to understand it, accept it, and then say, well, we can't do any of this until we double-line cross. So that's just, what do you mean? The science is telling us this. That's your way of protecting a broken system.
Are you pissed off about this? Because you do seem pissed off about this.
Well, who wouldn't be? Stephen, there's 1,700 people a day in this country dying from cancer. I don't know the English. Listen, that comes out to 70 an hour. And it gets worse every single year. And the last time I was on the show, you guys used some old data. Look it up today. It's 2026. American Cancer Society says this year in 2026, we will have 626,000 souls leave the planet from cancer. Okay? This 2026. And every year it gets worse. So when you hear all the breakthroughs, we have television ads in Boston for the cancer center. Breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. All these different, they come on. And all we do is get more dead cancer patients. Raise money for cancer. Where's the accountability for all the money you're raising? When is the people going to wake up? You don't make someone healthy by irradiating and poisoning them. You've got to understand the biology and the biochemistry of the disease. I have the concepts and the proofs, but the physician who works with the patient on a clinic basis, they're the ones that must apply this to the clinic. So there's two different things here. There's the hard science that's the bedrock for this, and then there's the clinical person who has the practice. So that practice does that. Together, you get great success, or better. I say success better than anything that's out there today.